It's very interesting is that they want to meet Armenians, talk to Armenians. Tell us a little bit about that, because you've been
Yeah.
involved in this from the very beginning.
Well, let me just do a quick history on the Turkish evangelical church, or Turkish converts from Islam to Christianity, because this is fascinating. And then
Mm.
it gets to this point. And there's been pretty good studies done on this, that in the 1950s, get this. So the genocide happens. So think about the population of what we think of modern day Turkey, Arthur, 11 million people, and maybe 4.5 million of them were Christian background. The genocide happens. Now you're down to like 99% Muslim, right? Where'd
Mm.
the Christians go? Well, they were deported,
Yeah.
they fled, or they were killed. So in the 1950s, there was 10 known Turkish believers, only 10 in the 1950s.
Known.
In
Oh, wow.
1961, so you got to remember, in 1923, uh, so Ataturk established Turkey. Well, he shut down all the missionary schools. We had missionary schools, hospitals, workers doing Christian work all over the country. They were gone. I mean, they had to leave because of the massacres as well. So that was gone. So no missionaries, no churches, no Christians. What do you expect? Why is it the least reached country in the world? Well, the genocide. So in 1961, the like after the genocide, the first missionary exploration teams go to Turkey. 1961. In 1966, finally, the first team arrives to do church planning in Turkey. In 1970s, that's when more organizations kind of come together. They decide to work there. And in 1978, there was 50 known converts. So 50. That's it. So now today, if I'm going to do a rough estimate, it's hard to get concrete numbers, but we have probably seven, maybe 8,000 Christians, which we're doing better than 10 now. And we have around 175 new churches that have started, that are led by Turkish or Kurdish pastors. So it's there's something that's happening that hadn't happened before. And among those pastors that you had just mentioned, there has been this conviction. I was just reading a quote by a guy named Bob Blinko, or Robert Blinko, who wrote a book on missions work in Kurdistan. And the quote, and when I read this years ago, it just struck me. He said that one day the Kurds will realize what they have done, and they will turn from the devil to Christ, and they will weep, or they will cry for what they have done.
Mm.
Okay, that's what he said. I got to see it happen. What he said,
Wow.
I saw happen in 2014. And I think it was around May or April. I was in Istanbul. I was on Istiklal Street, Istiklal Caddesi, Taksim, downtown, okay, Istanbul. And we were having a meeting with Kurdish Christian leaders. We had maybe 20 of them gathered, and there was a few other missionaries with myself that were all working, and loved these guys, encouraging them in their work. We did not plan this. uh, One of the men was started to talk about the role of their forefathers in the genocide. And then one began to speak, another began to speak. One spoke up and said, he said, they said, what have we done? Here we're believers now. And it was like something just happened in the room, where everybody just broke out weeping for 20, 30 minutes, maybe longer. I mean, bawling and crying out to God for mercy on their families, because their families are not all Christians, crying out to God for their lands, for their people, for their villages, for their cities, that God would save them. And saying, our people didn't know what we were doing. We were ignorant, and we massacred all these people. And here I'm with these missionaries watching this, like, what's going on?
Wow.
It
I
was
got goosebumps,
amazing.
man.
It was amazing to be there that day. I'll never forget that. It just the spontaneous, like, confession, and just this conviction. And it's really helped them in their ministries, I think, to to I don't know, to take a next step. Like when you humble yourself before God, he lifts you up. And saying that your people or your families did something that despicable, that's really humbling to do. But God gives
Yeah.
grace to the humble. So.
Great, man.